Hello, friends. Welcome back to another edition of the PCS Podcast, the Pokemon podcast built by the community for the community. I'm one of your co hosts, Aaron, and with me tonight, as always, is my co host, Michael. And actually, we have a very special podcast tonight. We have a good friend of the pod and a king among the people. We have King Dre joining amongst our ranks to deep dive into a very special topic of making your first day two at regionals, whether this be your first or you're just looking for a consistent placing in day two. But fellas, I don't know about you. I've been enjoying the 3 day weekend. I've enjoyed a lot of college football and enjoyed a
Absolutely.
very big rivalry match in soccer over in England. But how have you guys been so far over this weekend? We got thankfully one more day. But Dre, I'll direct the question to you too. How's your weekend been going?
Yeah, it's been a pretty good weekend. Been pretty chill because I didn't have any like cups or challenges. So I got to enjoy football. It feels so great getting to wake up
So
even this
good.
morning, going on YouTube and just getting to watch like highlights of the games I didn't get to watch. I'm like, yes, football's back. I love it.
Yeah.
I have so much so much stuff to play in like the background while I'm editing videos and stuff. And then like I hear the hype, so I get to go. I'll watch and like rewind it really
Oh,
quick. So it's been pretty good though, pretty chill before I lock in for this double cup weekend next weekend and then Baltimore after that.
Excellent. Yeah, I've. What's your team of choice for
So
college
for
football?
college, it's interesting because like my alma mater, San Jose State, I played football there. So like I kind of always root for those guys, but like my dream school and like my favorite team is USC. So
Oh, welcome to the Big Ten.
yeah,
Uh,
right. See how it's
that's
gonna
no
yeah,
longer
go.
the Big Ten anymore.
no, yeah, and it was the Big 11 for the longest time. But yeah, by money, sadly talks, and college football is pretty soon going to be just like four conferences, and then
Yeah,
that's it, basically.
no
I
more
think.
Power Five.
No.
Yeah. So it's but yeah, I was excited to watch. But Michael, our Georgia Bulldog fan, how
Yep.
how how have you been the last couple days?
Yeah, not too bad. Again, not a whole lot of poke this week. Earlier in the week, I was kind of recovering from the double cup weekend last weekend. So just a little bit of testing here and there, trying to narrow down my deck choice for Baltimore, which I'm excited to see you out there, Jay. And then really just gearing up for football. This is like, aside like from like the holiday season at the end of the year when the weather's actually nice, like football season is the best time of the year. So all week I was like hyping up for it. We had friends over yesterday, grilled out some wings, did some nachos. The wife of our friends went to Clemson. The dad played football at Duke, so we had them all over, and we bought a shirt for their son, who's like my Graham's best bud. We bought him a Georgia shirt too, so we surprised him with that. So it's fun. I love being a fan of the best college football team in the nation. Can't compare with that. Hopefully, we'll get to go see another national championship. I haven't missed one yet since I've been alive in real life, so here's hoping. Yeah, spent some time in downtown Raleigh the past 2 nights. We're only like 20 minutes from the city, so went on a date night after all the football, then came home and watched some more football. Fell asleep on the couch per usual, watching the Pac-12 at night. I think the
Yeah.
game starts at like 10:30 our time, and I wake up at 2 o'clock. I'm like, oh crap, I fell asleep. Let's watch the ESPN reruns of the game and all that. So yeah, not too bad. Not a whole lot of poke. Didn't do any pre-releases. I'm sure pre-releases starting where y'all are at as well. So that'll be for next week for the wife and son. They always do that together too, and I get to reap the benefits of getting the cool cards and not having to go to the pre-release. So win-win in my books. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but yeah, man. How about you, Aaron? What was your week?
Yeah, had our normal standard season challenge. Played DK and frustratingly had two misplays in each game that basically cost me the game. Versus Charizard and Reggie Drago, which you feel like that's a pretty decent matchup, but when you misplay, it's not a decent matchup. So I was pretty frustrated in that. But with our family weekend and college football coming back, it was actually Iowa scored 40 points, which may have taken us a whole month to get to last year. So the first half looked very similar to last year, and then the second half we actually were able to play football. So that was really exciting to see. And then today, my soccer team of choice, Liverpool, they played Man United and beat them pretty handily, 3-0. So that was really exciting. And then it kind of launches off this week. So I'm sure both of you are aware, but obviously college football rivalries, right, are like the coolest thing about college football, especially the week of the buildup. So in Iowa, it is Hate Week. So I have my Iowa hat on, and we
All
play
right.
Iowa State next Saturday.
Oof.
And it's always a really, really tough game, and it's always been Iowa's bad if they don't win, so it's a lot of pressure on us. But thankfully, Iowa State has kind of gotten a little bit better over the last probably 5 or 6 years, so it's not as bad. But yeah, I'm excited for that. It's a lot of animosity in the state because we have no pro football or any
Mm,
pro sports, so the universities really do feel like a professional team as much as build
yeah.
up. So a lot of that, and then just starting to look ahead. I got registered for Louisville, so that was really big. I think Dre, I think I saw you also get registered, so I'm excited to
Yeah.
meet you again. Got an Airbnb, so any of our faithful followers that are in the Discord and everything like that, please hit me up and DM. Sleep 6, I think, is what I got. So really excited about that. It's a pretty cool place. Carlos and Steven, I know, are in there, and I think Darius was
Cool.
looking at it as well too. But excited
Nice.
to get back and play before Baby Two's on the way in late December. So just
Nice.
excited to get out and visit Louisville. So it's been a fun week, and sports. You have soccer coming back. You have professional football next weekend. You have college football starting off. It's always been a fun thing, and growing up, my entire life has revolved around sports one way or another,
Yeah.
whether playing, coaching, or just being an avid fan or attending. It's This time of the year is really, really special, which is probably why fall is my favorite season. Not for this, not for the weather, just because of the action every single week that you have. So
And we're not
yeah,
stuck
I'm
watching
excited.
baseball anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tired of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. May through August is a little difficult. After NBA, especially after NBA, the finals end,
Yeah.
it's pretty barren
So we
in
had the
terms of.
Olympics to kind of fill up some space, though.
That's true. That's true.
Very true
Or-
this year. Yeah, that helped. So
That's good stuff.
yes, but I'm excited, Dre, to have you join. We have really a deep dive into a topic. I think not only myself, Michael, other listeners that have just picked up the game recently, or those that maybe attended a few things and haven't quite made it. But we have a really big topic tonight, which is how to make your first day two at a regional, or how to make a day two at a regional as well too more consistently. And Michael, I think if you want to introduce Dre here, this is his second time on the pod. If you recall, maybe last summer, just about 13 months ago, he was on as a Dre Ox's takeover. I wish we had a cool title like that, but I guess it's back. But Michael, if you want to give a little bit of insight into Dre.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll let Dre do most of the talking, but no, I think when we were chatting through who to bring on the podcast to talk about making day two, especially thinking about the majority of our audience, a lot of new players or players who are trying to get past that threshold. We think of people who are new to the game, and I immediately thought of Dre. Dre being fairly new to the game himself. I think Dre, this is your third season, correct? Maybe if
Yeah,
I'm
we'll be
wrong.
going into the third. Yep.
Going into third, and in those first two seasons, you've had a ton of success, more than I've had in my first season, and there are a handful of people I can think of, and you being one of them too. So before we dive in, like the specific Dre, just want to kind of hear like your come up in the history of the PTCG. Like you're kind of instilling yourself into the history. So I've got a couple questions for you, just so you can let the listeners know like how long you've been competing, things like that too. So obviously we talked about you're going on to year 3. But just, what are some of those decks along the way and in this journey that you've really kind of like latched onto that have helped propel you into success? I know everybody knows you as Dreoxys, so obviously that might be leading into one, but tell us a little bit about some of the decks that helped you get to the success that you've seen in just a few short years in the competitive TCG.
Yeah, for sure. So like my very first regional was Salt Lake City 2022. 22-23 season was my first season. I'd been playing like about 6-ish months prior to that, I'd say. I was just like a local warrior going to like all the locals, winning every league night.
Yeah.
And then like the guys, like I didn't go to any of like the regionals when that came back from COVID, because obviously I would just started and I was like, well, there's no point. I'm not gonna get an invite. Like I'll just wait till the new season starts. And so yeah, they were just like, gassing me as like, oh yeah, you're just a local warrior, wait till you get to the regionals. And so like I invested so much time into the game because I'm such a competitive person. Because I think I've always been a huge Kobe fan, so like the Mamba mentality type of thinking has always been like the state of mind I've been in. But I also think I just have kind of like an addictive personality, which can be good sometimes, sometimes not. But like for this, it was good because I was so addicted to playing the card game and wanting to be good that I spent hours on end just absorbing every piece of content on YouTube. I watched like Primawat versus Jay Lesage and like EUIC, like the very first EUIC, like all those, like all the way up to every VOD I could, every piece of content about learning the game. I sat in my living room while simultaneously like listening and watching, going through test hands, solitaire style, and like I probably lost so much sleep over those few months grinding that. And then I went to my very first regional at Salt Lake City and got day 2.
That's awesome.
And I started my run like 5-0 or 6-0, and and I had no idea that like along that 5-0, 6-0 start, I hit like 2 to 3 like probably like bigger name players, and I had no idea because like I didn't care. I think my ignorance was kind of bliss because I didn't like really have too much knowledge on like who the top players were besides like Zach Lesage and Cal Connor and like Isaiah Bradner, like the big names. Like okay, like I know like the top 10 guys that you see in the top 16, but like I'd been playing, like I played against like Goof GG. I had no idea who he was, but he was like a pretty well known and pretty good player, and I beat him in a mirror match. And I played Caleb Rogerson, and we did like a Mew versus Palkia, and like so there's like I was not intimidated. I mean, I've never been intimidated by competition, but like going into that regional, I just felt like I was really really well prepared because I invested so much time in just like the game itself getting good. But then like also my deck choice, I played Mew VMAX for months on end leading up to that regional. And I mean, if you go back and look at the Limitless page and look at that list, it was Lost Origin format. Drapion just came out. It was probably like maybe one of the like worst formats to play Mew, because Giratina with Drapion. You had Reggie's, which was like kind of bad because they had the Gigas and they ran the choice belt that hits like a clean knockout on Mew, because Reggie Gigas like what doesn't hit like 300 if it's 150 plus 150 if it's a VMAX plus the choice belt. It was just bad, right? And I'm just like, all right, you know what? I threw Thornton in that, John. Like just so if like Drapion came out, I could like turn unsuspectingly turn a Genesect into a Mew, and then just VMAX and go from there, or something like that.
So sick.
Or if they ignore my Meloetta and go after my Mew, then I can just like the energy's already there. I can Thornton it into a Mew and then evolve it, VMAX it. That was kind of like the thinking behind it. And then I played 3 Lost City, so every Reggie's player I played just got bodied.
You just cooked them,
I was like, there's 3 of them. There's 2 4 seal stones and 3 Lost Cities. Like you guys were, you're not getting. I'm chasing after the rock or the ice, something I know you don't run 3 of. And
right.
I think I hit like 3 or 4 over the course of 2 days, and every single one of them was like a 10-minute set.
That's awesome.
It was pretty rough. But yeah, so I think Mew VMAX was like Mew VMAX carried me through my first season. I kept changing the lists. I think I had like 3 top 64s, so it was consistent my very first couple regionals. My top 64 Salt Lake, top 64 San Diego, and Portland. And then I kind of got like, this kind of sucks. Like, I'm making day 2, and I'm getting the top 64, which like 50 points is pretty good, especially when like the invite was like 350 because it was a shortened year. Or like no locals and stuff like that. So, it was very. So then I kind of like was putting a little pressure on myself. There's probably a time where I probably could have just switched up and played like the Broken Lugia. I probably should have, and I probably would have gotten a few more better results. But then like towards the end of the season, I needed a top 16 to lock up my invite at Fresno. I lived in Fresno, so it was like literally in my backyard. It was literally like 5 minutes away from my house because I lived like near downtown.
Nice.
And then I was ready to play something else, but the tournament just seemed fine for me. VMAX, I threw a Manaphy in there, so Kyogre didn't feel as bad. And next thing I know, I'm going into the last round. I hit one of my buddies, Finn Lynch, who's like, me and him, he's a top player too. I met him through like a 1K where I went through some top player. My very first like bigger tournament that wasn't a regional was like a couple months before Salt Lake. I played a 1K that had like Gabriel Smart, like Michael Perez,
Jeez.
Liam Kidd, like all these guys that just like did really well at the Salt Lake City for the London World season, right? I had just watched these guys, like all of these guys. Finn got second. I'm pretty sure Perez got day 2. Gabe Smart just top 16. Liam Kidd made like top 8. I'm just like, holy crap. And I burned through and I went and I ended up like finishing second at that 1K. And I only lost to Liam Kidd because in game 3, I prized my Meloetta. Bro started Mew double Genesect pass and I popped off. I had the Alessa Sparkle in my Alessa Sparkle and Fusion Energy in my hand. He didn't retreat his Mew.
Yeah.
And I hit the VIP. I'm like, oh, it's prized, bro.
Yep.
Other than that, and like so that, and then so he was able to just go from there because he's just able to go 2-2-2. It's the mirror match, it's whoever gets the first 2 prize cards. And I think if I don't prize the Meloetta, I win that. But like even then, like I went head to head. My very first round, Gabe Smart, guy just top 16.
Yeah.
And then I go and I win that pretty convincingly. Then right after that, right into his buddy in the same testing group, Michael Perez. I beat him. I beat like 2 local players. One of my locals got me because he was playing like a dark deck with like the baby Moltres and stuff. So like I went into all this stuff, like the 1K and stuff, like pretty like battle tested already too.
Right.
So, but going into Fresno, when I hit Finn Lynch in the last round, we'd already played in like cups and challenges against each other, and he secured his invite just by making day 2. And he was playing Lost Box Kyogre. It was his deck. He was running stuff with it. And he knew he already made day 2, and he knew that going into this event that I just needed top 16. And our records, we looked, he's like, yeah, like you get the dub here, you get top 16. And awesome. Like I already got my world's invite. And just huge shout out to Finn, because what a guy, bro. Like he knew I had the Manaphy tech, but like the Manaphy tech still, it doesn't even like make that matchup very like free or anything. Like it's still pretty hard matchup because they can just like kill them if you put it too early. They kill the Manaphy and all that. So, but he scooped it up to me in that last round, and it locked me up that top 16. Made my NAIC like very stress free.
That's sick.
And going into that last tournament, I was ready. That's why going to NAIC, I played Guardy. I didn't do too well. I hit the mirror match that NAIC, did well in that. I hit like a weird, like oddly enough, it was Reggie Drago. It was a Reggie Drago like Arceus deck, and I prized like 3 psychics, and bro like Gudra me to death, and I was like, bruh. And I think we tied, and then like I just took too many ties. I think that was my problem. And then because I'd gone from playing such an aggressive deck that like I'd never tied, bro. VMAX, I was never tying. I'm either losing or I'm winning really fast. So going from that to, and then I wasn't aware of like how time was affected by playing these more strategic decks. So I took way too many ties, and I ended up I was out of day 2 contention. And because I had an invite, I just dropped. Going into Worlds, Lost Box seemed like a good play. I had like the worst matchups in Worlds for Lost Box. I hit like 2 Rapid Strike decks and a Lugia out of 5 rounds. I went 2-3 drop. I'm like, that's my Worlds. Hey, it's okay. I'm in Japan.
Live it up.
I wanted to do better, but like, hey.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
So I hear the thing about like sticking to one deck. Like I can attest to like, if you stick to one deck and you play really well, all your outs, even against the bad matchups, you can outplay the bad matchups if you know the deck really well. But as I've transitioned into this season, my second season, I think this season, I feel like this was way more, even though I didn't have like as many top 64s and like high placements this year, I still made quite a few day 2s and got my invite. And I just feel like this season was way stronger of a season for me than my first one was. Simply because I was able to like play a variety of so many decks, and I think overall as a player I grew this year. So like there's the stick to one deck thing, but then going into this season I can just like really also test like, if you want to get better at this game, you do have to step out of your comfort zone, and that's probably going to like create more success.
No, I like that. And I think like we were chatting earlier, we both played football, so it's like you come into your freshman season, you kind of stick to the books, you learn it by the books, and then you move into your sophomore season and you're a little bit more comfortable. You can feel more confident going out and making things happen and things like that too. So appreciate that. One of the other things that I wanted to chat through, and we'll dive in a little deeper later, is the mental aspect of it too. But you had said you day 2 your first ever regional event. Like that's pretty massive. Like I don't know of too many people that can say that. So like, did you go into that first regional saying, all right, Dre, I'm going to make day 2? Like, was that your goal? Did you know it was going to happen? Like, were you just confident, or were you like, well, let's just see what happens? Like, cause again, you talked about the Mamba mentality, and like, was that something you went into? Cause I know for my first regional, when I went to Charlotte for the first time this past January, I wasn't expecting, like, I was like, I'm still new to this game. Like, but it was so different for me because I'm a competitor as well. But I'm curious, like, how, was that a surprise to you, or were you like, no, I knew this was going to happen?
Yeah, no, this sounds, and I don't like to be like the cocky guy, but I feel like I am more successful in everything I do if I tackle things with the utmost confidence.
Yeah.
As a quarterback, I needed to instill that confidence in my team. As more confident I am in myself and in my players, the more, confident they played, and we just like gelled well, right?
Right.
And so for me going into this, I'm just like, I need to have the confidence that I've put in the work. I know my deck. I've put in the reps. I know it is very much like my sports mentality. I went in there thinking like, and I don't mean this like in like, I think I'm like the best player ever, but I went into that tournament thinking I'm going to win this tournament. That's the mentality I have. It's like, I'm going to go here and I'm going to win. Like day 2, is the first step to it. So yeah, I knew what my objectives were to get into the second day to give myself a shot to win. Right. But my objective every regional I've gone to since my very first one is like, I want to win. Yeah. Like I want to be up there getting that first place medal and stuff, like I want to be a champion. Yeah. I've seen like what it takes to be a champion. I have like a state championship in baseball from my high school career, and I got to a state championship in football in high school, and I lost, and like that sucked. Yeah. But I know what it takes to like get there, and the mentality you need to have is like, you have to have the confidence in yourself that you can do it. And if you don't feel that, like if you genuinely don't feel that confidence, then you probably just need to put more work in. Like I'm a firm believer in like the work ethic and the amount of effort you put in is going to wholeheartedly affect like your mentality and how well you believe you can and will do.
I love that. And I think what you talked about too, like to me, you said, I don't want to be the cocky guy, but having confidence, but also putting the work in. I think that's why you've, seen success and are a popular player amongst the community. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to be cocky and not put the work in, right? Especially for someone that probably wasn't as talented as you guys and played, tennis. But even then, I didn't pick up tennis till I was like a junior in high school. And that's all I did and you talked about earlier, like consuming all the content. And that was the same thing that I did when I started to play this game as well too. Actually, not very long after, like you probably started playing, like we're talking 3 to 4 months. That was like the number one thing I did is I watched every single regional, like leading up to everything, and just like trying to brainwash myself of watching the good players play so then I could play like them. And I think it's so weird, right? This has nothing to do with athleticism or who can run the fastest or throw the football the farthest or whatever, but it's all about the same mentality of competition. And if you do your homework and you have that amount of, I'm going to outwork everyone, I think that leads to a lot of strong results for people. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. No matter what the competition is, whether it be actual sports related with athleticism or this, and playing and grinding and learning, especially in having the open mind, saying like, I'm just going to outwork everyone, like hit a really strong chord in my brain, because that's always what I talk about is like, I am not nearly talented as anyone else on this court. Right. But it's like, I will show up at practice early. I'll hit balls afterwards, and I will hit against the machine. I will do whatever it is to maximize whatever my God-given talent is. But it's like, at least my work ethic can match that, even though my talent may be down here. So I appreciate you not sugarcoating of like, it takes a lot of hard work to be a good player in this game.
It's a real life Ash Ketchum, right? I mean, Ash never once went into a battle saying he wasn't going to win. No matter even if he won or lost, he still said he was going to win. So
that's why that's my guy. I love
that's right. I know, right? Gen 1 for life. No, cool. Appreciate that though, Jay. Dre, thanks for coming on, man. We'll pass over to Aaron. I think this is kind of where we'll dive deeper into what it takes to make day two. Obviously, you've got the pedigree. You've been doing this now for 2 years, and you've made a ton of day twos, way more than any of us in this room have done. So, yeah, it doesn't take much either because I don't think, at least I know I've not made a day two yet. That's changing this season. That's
Yeah, we're
happening.
getting
That's
you there.
happening in Baltimore. It's happening. But yeah,
That's
no.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Cool. Aaron, I'll pass it
Short
over to you,
enough.
man. Yeah. You got
Yeah.
this.
Dre, what methods would you use in terms of practicing or getting your reps in? Is it something like you're grinding ladder, which I know obviously you stream and I test. Also, shout out if you haven't seen your Raging Bolt of actually doing a deck profile and then doing with
Fantastic.
the physical cards and then jumping into the ladder to go through. Like that's you stole that right out of mine. Like that's what I wanted is like I like seeing like the physical layout first before like
Yeah.
PCTGL is not my cup of tea and it's just not as much fun, but like if anytime there's physical cards, like that's my content, so also chef kiss for that. But
Yeah.
is it grind and
Thank you.
ladder, is it are you doing like the limitless tabletop, are you doing something physical where you're you have proxies, right? You have all the meta decks out and you're playing against each other, right? Just so you can kind of get those. What's been your method of success, and like maybe what's, like I said, the most successful for you as well too, or something that you like the most as well too?
So I generally like the number one rule of thumb is you just need to play Pokemon. Like however that is, however you can, it's most convenient and best for you is just play Pokemon. If you go to a ton of locals, if you're just playing at home with your wife, your girlfriend, boyfriend, significant or whatever, best friends, just playing Pokemon. If it's PTCGL, it doesn't matter. You just need to play Pokemon. For me, when I first started, I really liked going into like solitaire, just running through hands, shuffling, and running through my opening hands, practicing as if I'm going first, practicing as if I'm going second, looking at my hand, really just sequencing out those opening hands and seeing the best play I can make to get set up so I can play the game. Um, and that really just helped on my hand, what I call hand optimization. I really haven't heard anyone like give that like really a title. So it's kind of like when I talk to my coaching clients and I can tell that they understand like prize trades and they understand like the prize map and stuff like that. That makes sense. But sometimes they're just not optimally playing their hand. They'll pick like the obvious play, or which I call is like, yeah, that's a good play because it progresses your game state, and you go forward. But sometimes that play is not the best play your hand has, and so you're not really playing your hand to the most
Mhm.
optimal way that you can. So that's what I call hand optimization, is just like making sure that that the correct way to sequence your plays and your hand to give you the most. I mean, if you're playing Raging Bolt, how you're going to see the most cards. If
Right.
you're
Yeah.
playing, Gardevoir, what combination of cards is going to help progress your board state the
Mhm.
most, right? Stuff like that. Just depending on the deck, what your goal is. So the solitaire is really good at that, as far as like strengthening your ability to optimize your hand. Because then you can also rewind. Like if you weren't sure, you can just walk back the plays you did,
Yeah.
try doing something else, and if it ended up being better, you're like, okay, well now obviously that is the best route I should have taken. And then it's just like those mental notes really, and that's something you can't do on PTCGO.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why stuff like that is really good, really powerful to do, is just getting some self games, testing just hands, opening hands. But you do need to play games because you need to know how you're going to play against like a random person, because other players, they're not going to play most optimally either. If you go to a regional, as the tournament progresses, your opponents will probably get harder because they are usually better players. That's why they're at the better records. And if you're doing really well, then you're going to hit those guys, right? So, I mean, but you're going to hit that variance where your first couple rounds, you could just hit like a top player off round one, and that's
Right.
kind of scary. It sucks. But most of the time, you might just hit somebody that's maybe the same skill level as you, or someone that like you're typically used to seeing at locals. So it's like you're not, you're gonna see misplays, and you're gonna be able to, if you're the better player, capitalize on those or play to your strengths and beat those. But playing obviously is going to matter. So getting on the PTCGL, going to locals, playing with your friends if you can, all that stuff is very important. But I think a combination of it all is what you do need. If you don't do like the solitaire hands, I recommend it. If you're burnt out by PTCGL, hey, go grab your cards, the deck that you feel like you want to play, do your 10 mass shuffles, flip a coin, call it, and go through hands as if you're going first, as if you're going second. Get yourself like split amount of reps, and just it's a lot of work. Like if you really want to, it can be tedious, but as someone who's lived it, done it, and continues to do it to this day, like it's very, very key to feeling prepared, being prepared.
And I like that I think the main theme is repetitions. As long as you're doing something is better than nothing.
Right.
The fact that you talked about the, shuffling, and because again, I hate the app, but I am one of those that will shuffle because I like shuffling, right? And one, I need to practice shuffling as well too. Azul talked about it in his podcast, before, and he's like, "You guys got to get better at shuffling." And I was like, "All right, that's probably a call out for all the pokey dads out there, which is myself." So I was like, "All right, I just need to shuffle." But I like that you said like the solitaire hands, because that's something that I do a whole lot, and you also saying like do it again, but like have the same, don't reset, but just do the same seven, or I guess, 7 cards after you draw, and do a different action. That is something that I literally just wrote down on a note. It's like, oh, I don't do that. I always just go with like what instantly comes to my mind, and then, go from there. But also rewinding it and kind of same cards, figure it out. I think that is something that I know that I will take to heart now as well too. So I appreciate you. Yeah, exactly. This, there's a reason we might
That's why
have
we
had
brought you on,
Dre
just
on
for free
instead of
coaching.
exactly. Instead of Michael and I talking about this, that people that have not made day twos, like, oh, let's get someone on there that has been a consistent finisher since they started playing. So I think Michael, you have the next question.
Yeah, this is a fun one, and again, I think we've kind of alluded to it in your journey between season 1, season 2, and your deck choice. But let's talk about deck selection too. How do you come to, like, I guess going into Baltimore, and don't disclose what you're going to play. I don't feel obligated to do that, obviously, but like, that's the phase I'm in right now. I'm narrowed it down to 2 decks, and I feel this time around, like, I'm not wishy-washy. I'm like, all right, cool. I know I'm playing one of these 2 decks right now, and in the past, I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to play. Like, I've been playing this all along, but like, give us some advice on deck selection and making that decision. Like, do you run into, or do you consider the factors like comfortability, matchup spreads, the limitless tabletop, or the trainer hill data, speed of play? Like, what all goes into that for you, and making it the most efficient process?
Definitely. So my first season, it was really just like it. I was actually really analytical in my first season, even though I stayed to 1 deck. If you go and look at my lists, they're almost so vastly different.
Yeah.
From tournament to tournament that I played. Like I think I'm talking like it's Mew VMAX, sure, but like 10 card differences is pretty good jump from like tournament to tournament. And I would say it would be somewhere around there, 8 to 10 card differences. I would change counts, change text based on what the meta is looking like, what people are playing, what's popular, what's strong, what my worst matchups are, stuff like that. So even when I was sticking to just 1 deck, I think that's like there is a lot of like strength to that by sticking to your 1 deck, but like also, you know, becoming a better deck builder and knowing how to maybe just like tech your deck or change counts to make it better for the tournament you're going into. Because like there's so much information available. Like you mentioned the trainer hill data, all that stuff. Look at what your worst matchup is based on that data, and then okay, what cards, if there is any, what can I play that will maybe make it a better matchup. And so stuff like that. But as I went into the second one, I kind of like changed. Like I said, towards the end of my first season, I changed decks for NAIC Worlds, and then I played Lost Box, but it was a vastly different build than the one I took to Worlds. And I took it to Pittsburgh, which was like the first regional of the season last year. And I went from a 2-3 drop at Worlds to I got 17th place.
Yeah, I remember
at
that.
like the biggest regional to date at that point. And I literally bubbled out of top 16 by opponent's percentage.
Right.
And I went 6-2-1 into day 2 and 5-1 in day 2. And that was just an insane run that I had with the deck. And I just played it. I just the chart that me and my team were looking at, we're like, yeah, Lost Box is the play. Either that or Lugia. Like those were like the top 2 decks. And like I'm like, okay, well, my worst matchup is Lugia. I mean, I have the Raikou, but like 2/2/2 trading and stuff like that kind of sucks. So then I threw in like Town Store was insane because I could get my 4 Seal Stone and stuff like that. But I threw in the I can't even remember it now. The Sky Seal Stone that lets you take an extra prize card.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that swung like the Lugia matchup like very, very hugely. I think I went like 2-1 against Lugia's over both days. Like it was went and took it into a pretty good matchup for myself. With that card, and then being able to find it because I played the Town Store.
Right.
So I think very good deck building, and like I said, making the correct text for that tournament. And I think after that, having that really good placement, it just instilled so much confidence in myself as a player that like I didn't have that many reps with that specific build of the deck. Going into that tournament. So like I think I only had 1 or 2 weeks prep, and then it just snowballed from there. I took Lugia, which I had never really played except like challenges. I didn't hard mode grind it, and I just took it to Peoria. Ended up going like I think I went 6-3. I just missed day 2 or something like that because I hit a Miraidon on my winning in.
Of course. Lugia luck.
Yeah, took it to the next major because like the chart said, hey, Lugia colorless Lugia's good here. And so I took it to SAC, and that's what ended up winning the tournament. I got top 64, I think, there too.
Yeah.
So and then Gardevoir is playing Gardevoir and playing Mew again. It's really good to get back to Mew when like the tournament structure was like, hey, Mew's actually in a really good spot here. I'm like, sick. Got day 2 at Charlotte with it. Got my invite in January, like way faster than I did last year. Halfway through the season, we were able to chill. So as far as taking my deck choice now, is I went from the one deck and making the text to like now I do try to play the deck that seems like it is the best deck for the tournament.
Got it.
And most times it is just the BDIF because of like shout out to my team that I play test with, like Cal, Gem, all those guys, because sometimes when I'm play testing with like Josh Frink and Cal Connor, I sometimes feel like, man, I'm just not as good as these guys. Like, granted, they've been playing years longer than me, but like they're still really good. Like, and like I just feel like I'm never gonna get there. But those guys will tell me like that was like it's just a bad matchup. You played as good as you can. Like, but this is how we beat that deck. We just know. So these are the outs in there, and they really instill that confidence in me. Like, bro, you're a vastly good player than a lot of other players, and you're probably like you're up there. And they put that confidence in me even the times when I'm like not that as confident in myself.
Sure.
And because of that, now when we're discussing what the deck selection should be for the next tournament, because we usually try to have like a team effort on like what the best decks are. If they say the best deck in the tournament, the best deck in the format is probably the best thing. If you're a good pilot, I'm like, well, I think I'm a pretty good pilot. I think I can probably beat a lot of people just off of skill and playing the best deck in the format. And a lot of times that's usually what it takes is if you're the better player and you play the best deck there is, you'll probably do pretty well. So that's kind of come into it too. And then, or if we just know that a deck is like way too popular because everybody's going to play the best deck in the format and there is like a good way to counter it, then we'll just do that. So it's been like a really big change going into my second season and going to this third season. I think I'm just going to continue to build off of that. Going into Baltimore, like we know what the format is because Worlds was the same format. So like we know, like it's just this funny, like I put out a tweet the other day of like kind of like this like diagram of if you want to play this, you're probably gonna lose to this, or you can play this that beats that, but this loses to that, just like the little flow chart basically. But we are kind of like in like a little circle of life format right now because like Reggie Drago's the best deck in the format. If I don't play Reggie Drago, I'm trying to play something that beats Reggie Drago to Baltimore. Because I know I'm going to run into a lot of good players that are probably playing. Like a lot of the best players are probably going to play Reggie Drago. So I need to either be really good at the mirror or I'm going to play something that beats it. And then there's the turbo decks that usually they give it a harder time because it usually needs a turn to evolve and get all set up. So if you're taking a Raging Bolt going second and you're blowing up their lone Drago V, game over.
GG's.
Or if you're a Moon player that just instant kills or Miraidon like instant kills, like
Right.
All three of those decks have the ability, but then like they have like really bad Ancient Box matchups, and really bad Charizard matchups. And then if you're playing Ancient Box, you beat the Turbo decks. You have a good Regidrago matchup. It's pretty close. But then you lose to Zard. And then there's just like the fringe stuff. Like Guardy's probably in like the worst spot it's ever been. Lugia is a casino. Iron Thorns is like the most fraudulent world winning deck I've ever seen. And so people will play it, and I can't fault them for it. But then it's like, and if you play Zard, you're probably gonna beat everything except Drago. Like you can put stuff in your deck to beat Drago, but if you hit like a really good player, like if Cal Connor decides to show up with Drago and he's playing, you're probably still gonna lose to Cal Connor playing Drago because it's not like you're heavily favored into Drago as Zard. You're probably slightly unfavored, and that's where the skill expression, like a player of his caliber, will like vastly exploit that 5% difference. I've seen it in my testing where I'm like, I built my Zard list. Like it should be 50-50 now. And then he's like, nah, it's still 55-45 favored. And then it feels like it's like a 70-30 just playing against him. Like, so
that's funny.
And you just touched on it as well too. Our next kind of topic was, play testing. And you touched on it already, of how you do it. But you kind of touched on it with the matchups. So obviously we have the limitless, meta, right? Or the percentages. And I've always said like you take like maybe like 60% of that actually for what might be true. Mm-hmm. So how are you coming up with, in my brain, the other 40%? So you talked about, with your team and testing. So how is it looking like that where, you guys are testing, and I'm guessing playing multiple games to kind of get that your own percentages that you talked about. So what does that look like, with the spreadsheet and you take the limitless data and then you guys have your own testing data? What's that look like? Is it just grinding games on like limitless, tabletop, or are you guys doing webcam discords or just things like that? Or you're just running the matchup by yourself versus yourself and you play 100 games and you go, okay, this is what I got. What's kind of look like as a top tier player?
So with my group, shout out Josh Frink. So he's so blunt and I love it. And sometimes it can like, I'm not gonna lie, I get like my feelings hurt because I'll be saying something and he's just like, dude, that sucks. And I'm like, damn, like,
I think we all
give it a little shot, but like he's so real about it. So like, I'm not gonna lie though, it hurts my feelings sometimes. I'm like, dang, thought I had a good idea, but he keeps it real. And but like Josh is like, he's so adamant about like the limitless percentages are so fake. Like, I wouldn't even put, and now I see, as because I played a few of them and like I can see why he says that. And like I wouldn't even put 60% of my projections.
Weight, like in the weight in it.
I wouldn't even do that. I think I would take maybe 30% of like limitless tournaments, because
that's another
the top players that are playing in those are not going to play what they're going to play online. I'll be playing in the next major. 100% they're not. And then a lot of people are just like playing stuff for fun, that they're just like, because their real testing is like burning them out, so they're just playing a goofy deck or something like that on the online tournament or something like that. Or they're just playing like, okay, well, I know what limitless metas kind of look like. I'm just gonna play a deck that beats the limitless stuff. That's not gonna be the same stuff that people bring to majors. So 30% maybe at the most, but you can really, I try to go from major to major as long as we're still in the same format. And then a lot of times the way we weigh matchups and come up with percentages is basically like we're either grinding a lot of games to get to that point, because between all of us in my group, we all still play test on our own, and even with other people. Like Josh Frink has been playtesting with Alex Szymanski for years. So they have that group off to the side, which, sometimes he'll bring a little bit of that knowledge. He's not going to leak everything that they're doing, but he'll get some of that knowledge. Like, this matchup was like probably actually more like this. And from my testing, I'm like, okay, well, like from my side, it's felt like this. This is what it's looked like from my locals and from my testing. Cal is in Seattle, really good area, tabletop village. Good players are up there, and he's like over there winning like cups and challenges with different decks. And so he's like, yeah, this matchup feels like this. And so like we kind of use our own like intel to really come up with those matchups, because the caliber of player that we have in our testing group, more times than not, they're going to be playing the deck very optimally. which means, it's pretty good. You want to base your data off of your play off the assumption that your opponent is not misplaying.
Right.
And so the best way to do that is by playing against somebody or seeing what the matchup spread feels like from the point of view of someone playing a deck optimally, or most likely playing the deck optimally. So with that, it's like a lot of our percentages come from just our own testing. And then we'll kind of look like, okay, and then we'll theory on. If we're not sure, then we'll sit there in the group chat and we'll theory on like, yeah, this has this. If it plays this, which this amount of decks probably are playing this matchup feels this way. But if they're not playing this card, it feels maybe like slightly favored or whatever it is. And then that comes into play a lot too, because when like you have such great minds all together, they've seen these formats, they've seen like they understand how the game works at a base level. So like a lot of these cards get reprinted in a sense, very similar effects and stuff like that they've seen before. So they know how these kind of things interact and how to beat those sort of interactions. And that's just like what's really awesome about working with guys like these guys that have been around for years, right? Me and Jem, I know like we hype each other up because we're like the new guys on the block and stuff like that. And we've done really well. Like he's had a ton of day twos and good success too.
Yeah.
And so he's in the testing group with me, and like we're just like the new guys are like we're super hyped up and super amped up, and we're just like, yeah, we're gonna kill this stuff, bro. Like, and we're pretty good at the game, but we're not like at that level like the other guys yet. And so we really do absorb a lot of that. And it's just really awesome to see when you have just like you also because like even a fresh set of eyes and like a newer mind can maybe see something that they don't see. Like, there's some things that I'll bring up that Jem will be like, yeah, I thought of something like that, but I wasn't trying to say anything, or like I was just doing it on my own because I wasn't sure. I'm like, well, yeah, I think, or he'll bring something up. I'm like, bro, I literally was thinking the same thing, but I just didn't want to say anything and have Josh or Cal just tell me, no, dude, that sucks. Which sometimes it's needed because sometimes I have a looking at my prior Mew list. I've played some jank and some Mew lists. Happened. But yeah, definitely tough love for sure. But yeah, I think going into the tournaments, I think you do need to have a lot more of a solid self-analysis. If not, maybe start listening to more of these podcasts, watching more of these pro players streams and seeing how it is. And you hop in my stream while I'm playing and you ask me what a matchup feels like, I'm just I'll let you know. Like I've always like prided myself on being like really like real with everybody. I don't sugarcoat anything. I don't try to like meta manipulate anything. Like I'm always just super like upfront about everything. So people that come to me and ask me questions, it's like, yeah, I think that deck probably is not good. I think that matchup is probably really unfavored. Or like someone asked me like about the I think it was the Charizard Regidrago matchup. They're like, you're telling me as long as I don't get turn 2 Trifrosted, I'm not gonna beat Regidrago Wizard. I'm like, no. Like even if you survive the turn 2 Trifrost, you're probably still gonna lose. You can't base it off of like your locals that are probably misplaying the deck. I guarantee you it is not like your favorite as long as you survive the second turn. 100%.
I'm not even sure Triforce is the optimal play
no,
for Regidrago turn 2. It's not
unless
at all. Yeah.
Unless you're just winning the turn because they went Mander Poffin Pass.
Yep.
Yeah, or something like that.
Or something like that. Yeah. So like that's not even like really it either. So it's just stuff like that goes into it that I think if you talk to more of the pros, listen to more of these meta discussions, go tune into some streams, and then just like play test the matchup more, and try to come up with like your own percentages on that. Like, yeah, Limitless is still a good tool. Trainer Hill is a really great tool.
Right.
But you can't just put all your eggs in that basket if you want to like make the best deck choice going into these tournaments, I think.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, one closing piece too before we move on into some different aspects of making day 2. But in terms of like, if someone here is looking for that first day 2, what's the one piece of advice or the one you talked about a ton, which is awesome. But like, what's one thing you would say to them to lock in if they really want to make day 2? What's going to take them to that next level?
It's going to sound so like cliche, yada, yada, but you really just cannot put the weight of it on yourself. Like you cannot go into the tournament like, I got a day 2. Because like you're going to take yourself out of the like focus of the game in front of you because you're just too worried about your record. You're too worried about the last loss. Oh, now I can't tie. I got to play faster. And then you're going to misplay or something like that. Like, I noticed that because my goal in my second season was like, man, I've done a lot. I got top 16, top 32, 64s, day twos, world invite. Like, now I want a top 8. I need to make a top cut. And I put so much stress on myself that I realized that, like, there was tournaments I was just like not fully in it because I'm overthinking my record, what I need to do, how I need to play games instead of just focusing on just playing my games. And so, like, when I went into my very first regional, I I was going every round by round.
Right.
I took it exactly how I played quarterback. I took every play snap by snap. If I threw a pick, yeah, I'm mad. I'm going to the sideline. I'm pissed, probably like huffing and puffing but by the time I go back on the field and it's first down, like, I'm reset. I don't care. It's like, now we're just gonna go score a touchdown. Like, let's just go.
Yeah.
You know? And it's kind of the same thing with the tournament. My very first run was like, I was like, okay, I won. Okay, I won. Next one. Oh, this is Reggie's. Okay, I know how I win. Oh, this is Tina. Okay, I know how I win. Like, I think genuinely just going in there without putting that pressure on yourself is gonna help you focus game by game. Like, it sounds super cliche on not focusing on making day 2, but I promise if you just focus on playing your games, trust in your prep, trust in your deck selection, and play, you'll be in the position before you know it.
That's awesome. Cool, man. Free
Yeah,
coaching right there.
I appreciate. Yeah, say that is top tier coaching. I think
Yeah.
is to just keep playing each round, but each top deck, right? You just keep playing to play the most optimally. So this is probably the area that I feel like when I self critique myself is my weakest point, is that really key critical decision making in terms of the games, right? Do I boss to take up those 2 prizes, or do I play a research to try to finish my board state to finish the line and get obviously to the 6 prizes first? What are some things that you've worked on since you've joined and gotten better in the game of helping those like really key critical decisions of do I ultra ball away this blank card, right? That could be a part of a combo that I need to finish off the game. I think those I overanalyze. And when I talked about at the beginning from this week, it was I didn't go with my first gut check, my first gut choice, which was actually the right play. And then I go and then like I start looking and I analyze. I'm like, well, then I need this and this and this. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, then I look, I'm like, oh, I didn't grab the right 2 cards off my legacy star, right? And it's like, cool, pass over to you now. So what is something that you've learned the last few years of just trying to make those, maybe you're sweating, maybe your hairs are standing up a little bit because you're like, oh man, I have games so close if I pull off this specific combo. And it's not necessarily always a game making decision, but it's like, do I go ahead or do I continue build up my board state? What's something that you've prided yourself on of learning, obviously, since you've been playing, of just helping all of us make those really critical decisions and making the most optimal play? That's not always 100% play, right? Obviously, boss for game is 100% play, but it's those ones where it's like, all right, this is either a 55% play or 65% play,
Right.
and distinguishing those two.
So I'm not without misplays. I've had my fair share of misplays, definitely. But I do pride myself on that. Like, when I misplay, I typically do not make the same misplay again. Like, I can't think off the top of my head when I've ever been like, oh, bro, we've done this before. We know this. Like, I don't really have a lot of those. When I misplay, I'm just like, yeah, damn, I misplayed. I should have thought a little bit better. I should have like took a second to reanalyze.
Yeah.
I didn't notice there was a challenge or it was a cup, and like I knew it was like Lugia, they went attached pass, but it was a missed energy. And the beginning of the turn, I'm like, okay, well, I just need a Calamity Storm here. I'm playing Lost Box, I had the moon in it, but I didn't hit the stadium, and kind of just got frustrated because like I played really the whole turn really well, but I mean sometimes you just miss. Like it's very possible that you take the right route and you just miss. It's possible.
Yeah.
Like the RNG in the game is the RNG in the game for a reason. Like things happen, and so because of that, the frustration did settle in a little bit, and I could have just Calamity Storm for 100 and set something up. But I just announced like frenzied gouging, and I mean it failed because he had missed energy on, and I played Temple in my deck too. That was actually I played Pokestop and Temple, so I was like, dude, I hit Temple, I win. I hit Pokestop, I win. Like I have 2 ways to win this. And I just did not
Right.
hit either stadium, and it was really really frustrating because I think I hit like 3 comfes, chorus, ninja. Like so, I saw so many cards, and it's like how am I missing this? Um, so something like that, like I can understand like the misplays. So that's something I kind of like pride myself on, is like just not making the same one twice.
Yeah.
Now as far as like knowing like what to do, there are just like rule of thumbs, like things I do in my coaching that I talked whenever we're trying to decide, like, well, back to what I was referring to as hand optimizations, like what do I discard, what do I keep? First thing is like, well, do you have a way to recover one of those cards? Is it an energy? Is it a Pokemon that you need this second? Like Radzard, like in Charizard, in my first turn, if I have Radzard and Ultra Ball in my hand, Radzard's going into discard. Like I can just get it with Super Rod later. I don't need it right now.
Yeah.
Free. It's a free discard. I play 2 Super Rods. I'm okay. Same thing with like energy cards. All right, I check the deck. I have 4 in the deck. One's prize. One's in my hand. I can discard this one in my hand. Supporter. Do I play Pal Pad in this list? I do. Okay, cool. Boss can go. I'm not bossing this turn. I can get it later. So stuff like that. And then I try to just refrain from like the cards like I cannot recover. Like I don't want to discard counter catchers if I can help it. I don't want to discard stadiums if I need it and if I can help it. Stuff like that. I don't want to discard my tools like my Defiance Band. It might come in certain like aspects of the game. So there's just stuff like that. It's kind of like the rule, like a little rule of thumb. So a little free coaching tidbit there.
Love it.
But it's really hard to always pinpoint what the most optimal play is with certain decks, because there are just also a variety of varying difficulty deck to deck. So I mean like making your decisions in Charizard are probably a little bit more difficult than it is making the decisions in Lugia, which I think in our testing group we've kind of got pretty close to unanimously saying it's like probably one of the easiest decks to play right now. Like Miraidon still takes like a decent amount. I mean, you have to hit your generator, so there's an RNG part of it, but like sequencing to like maximize the odds, a little harder than Lugia. Same thing with like Turbo Moon and Raging Bolt. Like you have to sequence things properly so you get the energy discards. So you can use Sawdust, you can draw into other things, then you can ninja, and then you can get your dong. Like stuff like that. Like like the objective of the turn, very simple for all the turbo decks. I want a donk, but like sequencing matters, and you're gonna have higher odds of doing it. That's why there's like a lot of people will show up to a tournament with Miraidon. I know a lot of people showed up to Worlds with Miraidon, but that's why Jesse Parker was the only Miraidon in top 8. If it was just an easy deck to pilot very optimally, there would have been like 4 in the top 8, right? But there was not. It's very hard to really dive into that though. But the main thing is like it also just comes in with the reps. As more comfortable with you are, you've seen these things before. You're like, okay, well, based on what I've seen before, if I play these cards in this order, I'm gonna see more cards. Seeing more cards is the name of the game. Like you're probably gonna put more combos together the more cards you see. You're gonna be able to thin more with the more cards you see. So just going that kind of route is like how I it's very, very simple when I talk to like newer players that I'm coaching. It's like your objective is to see cards. What combo of putting these things together is going to let you see the most amount of cards? Don't think about anything else about this. When you'll get to the attack, you'll get to the board state you want to be if you just focus on how do I see the most amount of cards. And that rule of thumb generally leads to like first turn attacks or well-established board states. Usually, now there are outliers, but like generally in Pokemon, see cards, good thing.
Cool. Dre, I think the next big thing that I want to talk through, and we've kind of hinted on it throughout the way too, is the aspect of a mental game. Anybody in any competitive scene has to work on that mentality. You talked about the mob mentality, the Ash Ketchum mentality, things like that. And a backstory for me, like I'm super, super competitive. So when I suck at things, it's really hard for me to like come out of this mental funk. And I'm not an outward tilter. Like I'm always an internal tilter. So like, but you can kind of tell when I'm tilting, you just kind of see it on my face. Like I'm never going to get pissy. I'm too nice of a person to like outwardly flip the table on someone or get pissed or eat a card or anything like that. But like mentally, I'm just in a bad place. And I live in an area where I'm fortunate to play some really talented players. Caleb Rogerson lives here. I've had plenty of sets against Grant Manley. And so like Grant's going to pick up on this. Like Grant's been playing the game for forever. So he rode back with us on the way home from Indianapolis this past year after he got top 4, losing to Hedrick and things like that too. And so we're just chatting along the way. And again, I've played mainly since I first started playing. Like I've run into him at cups and challenges locally, and he said something to me, and like if you know Manly, you know this isn't like any malintent. Like it's just how he is. But like he came to me and we were in the car and he's like, dude, you're not good enough to get pissed when you lose a game. Like and like I know, and like I at the moment he said, I was like, oh my God, like that makes so much sense. But because it's a very like, and it's true, like I'm not good enough to sit there and tilt for days and days and days over losing a challenge or like bubbling out of top 8 or whatever. So it's something I think about all the time because I think that's truly what's holding me back from being the best that I can be is my mental game. And I think perhaps like, yeah, you can grind and you can play games and you can do that. But like, I think if you look at some of the best players out, look at Manley, for example, like Grant has been playing the game for so long. And he just barely has missed so many different times, but he keeps coming back and he keeps performing. And you see that time and time again with all of the greats out there, Lesage. Like there's so many people who have pieced together the mental game that helps them. And not to say that you're always up and down and like things like that. But tell us a little bit, like, what are some of those aspects, even like in the moment? Like, let's just say you have a really bad set at a regional event, or you open game 1 and you have the worst freaking set ever. And like, how do you work yourself out of that? Because I think for a lot of newer players, that is a big piece. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a me thing being hyper competitive. But I would argue that a lot of people probably have the same issue. And maybe you've struggled with that too at times. So like, what are some tips and tricks like to help get your head back on right and to not tilt so that you can, like you said, all right, cool. Next set, let's go. I'm locking back in. Like you mentioned the same thing with the quarterback. I threw a pick. All right, cool. Next drive, we're going to go score, things like that. So like, how do you find that balance, or like the ways to put together a really good mental game?
Right. Like I mentioned before, I'm really like honest and real with people. Part of that is I wear my heart on my sleeve. Like I'm a very like, I think that's why a lot of people like me, because like I am very like emotionally like open. Like, when I'm like, if I'm having a bad mental health day, I'll put a tweet out. It's like, hey bro, I'm like struggling mentally. Like, if I don't, so that's just like, that's not me asking for like, and like, it's not me trying to like make people feel bad for me. I just want people to know that like, I'm not responding to DMs right now, probably because of that. Right. I'm probably not online because of that. Like, I'm gonna be fine, but like, I'm human too. Like, I'm gonna have my bad days. I'm gonna have my bad mental days and stuff like that. So I'm very open about my struggles. When people ask me questions like about growing up, like I had one of my very first podcasts that I did, they wanted to do more about like my, because I'm not a very like common Pokemon player, if that makes sense. Like people see me and do not expect when I tell them, yeah, I play Pokemon full time as my job. You're like, what? Are you you? Like, and I'm like, yeah, like, so, and I did one of those interviews and I was just very upfront about like, the way I was raised, the hardships I came from. I came from the hood. I came from bad. So like stuff like that, like very open about it. And so like when it comes to tilting, like I'm also very open about like, I've struggled like with the mental health of like this game, because I am also a very hyper competitive person. Right. Just knowing that like, damn, like I played the same deck as other person in my testing group, but like, dude, my tournament sucked. Like in Indianapolis, we played Zard with 2 Devo, and dude, I hit Tina round 1. It's pretty unfavored matchup, but I found a way to beat it. I played a Goldango with the Dunsparce and like letter of encouragement. I didn't expect that to be a bad matchup, but it turboed through the deck and I lost to that. And then I go and I play Lugia with Rats, and that should be a bad matchup, but I beat that in 3 games. Very close set, but I beat that. And like, all right, man, well, I've hit like 3 bad matchups in a row now, right? I'm 2-1. Like theoretically it should be 0-3, so we're in a cool spot. Let's just like hit some like stuff that I want to hit. Right. And then I go on and I hit Arctina with double leaves. I was like, yeah, great, bro. And I'm 2-2. I'm not out of it yet. And then round 5, I hit a mirror. I'm like, okay, cool. This is what we're here for. I have 2 Devos. Bro plays 2 Charmeleon. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. I didn't even play game 2 or 3. I was in a place where I'm like, yeah, I know that this is tournament. It's just not going to be my tournament.
Sure.
I can tell from what I've played. I can tell how mentally I'm already like, I'm not, like you said, I'm not the person that's going to be like, I'm not going to take it out on my opponent. Never could do that to somebody because like, it's like they played the game well and they won. Like there's nothing I can do about it. Like there's they were their deck was built better. They played well and they beat me. Like so my thing is just like, bro, this sucks. It just sucks. And sometimes that's just this card game. You know, someone's built and has a tech or something like that and is built to beat you and you just hit that and you lost the matchup, you know, and so like that happens and I always congratulate my opponent, tell him well played. And you know, sometimes it's fine. Like at the end of that tournament, I was really bummed. I went back to my B&B, sulked a little bit. But now like I look back and I laugh. I'm like, dude, that's probably like the worst. I played the best deck in the format, but man, so many people hated that deck. I just did not have a good run. But there's been tournaments where I've taken, you know, I took the Lost Box and I played like a bunch of good matchups. Like I played a bunch of Miraidons before the Iron Hands was in there, and I got to play Lugias that I was teched for to beat them and stuff like that. So like, sometimes you get the good, you made a good call and you get the good matchups. Sometimes you make a good call, you hit the bad matchups. Sometimes you make a bad call and hit all the bad matchups. Like that's some stuff you can't control. It's frustrating. But but even stuff in your you know, where like Grant told you that, I'm like, that's insane. That's insanely funny, but it's like really like
it's
insanely
true.
real.
Yeah.
It's 100% real. Like when someone says something like that, it's like even me, I'm in that boat. Like sometimes I get mad about losing, but I'm like, I'm nowhere near good enough to be upset at that. I need to just refocus. Yeah, okay, I misplayed here.
Yeah.
Play better, do better. You know, but we're all human. We're all gonna tilt. I try not to let it, as long as I'm like actively alive in the tournament, I'm very good at my short-term memory.
Yeah.
I think my like self-bullying, whatever you want to call it, happens like if once I'm out of the tournament. Like if I get eliminated from the tournament, I was like, dang, like this sucks. Like I didn't play well in this turn, in this game, in this set, in this game, or I misplayed in that one, and then like and it can affect you. I'm very like for the fact of sometimes you got to let people be mad or sad.
Yeah, I get that.
Like me, I will be fine. I feel like I'm a very strong person because I'm so open about my emotions.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just need people to let me be upset.
Yeah.
I promise I'll get over it. But just mid tournament, I think it's harder for some people. I think I'm blessed with the prior mindset I've had from sports that it makes it easier when I'm in the moment. A lot of my beating up on myself happens post tournament.
Sure.
So it's very hard for me to say what I do to like keep that level head. It's just like something that I've already had ingrained in me. The best thing I can say is I'm like, hey, if as long as you're still able to keep playing Pokemon, whether you're gonna make day 2 or not, like if you want to keep playing Pokemon, keep playing Pokemon. If you're still alive in the tournament, you cannot stress yourself out. I actually had a very funny interaction with somebody in LA at this past season. I had just tied my first round and I was a little annoyed because I should have won, but it was a slow set, whatever. I'm getting up. It's okay. I tied. And then somebody is like upset that they lost and they push this female that's like standing right next to me.
Dang.
Between the tables. And she's like, excuse you. And I heard him. So, and he was all like, you know, he was like, what the F ever or something like that. Like really. And so like that immediately I was upset at like the tie, but like immediately I popped up. And he didn't even make it he got to the end of the row of the tables before I caught up to him, grabbed him by his shoulder and turned him around. And I'm pretty sure like, you know, people are not used to that, but that is so like, I understand the tilt. I was just tilted, but like to him, like I gave him probably the pep talk of his Pokemon career because I straight up told him, I'm like, bro, that was inexcusable. Wait, what are you doing? He's all like, what? I said, I'm sorry. I'm like, dude, you're not going to lie to me. I was sitting right there when you walked by and heard you.
Dang.
You know, I'm like, I understand because I there's no slip in his hand. I mean, I can assume you're walking away from the table without the slip. You probably lost.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, whatever happened in your last round, you got to let it go. Yeah. It's the first round. You have plenty more Pokemon to play. Doing that is not it. and you're gonna get yourself kicked out of here, or you're gonna get somebody else upset. And we're all here to have fun and have a good time. Like that is just not the vibe you need. And you know what? I ended up seeing him probably 2 or 3 more times throughout the tournament, and he came up and told me, he's like, bro, like, thank you. Like the next round, actually, I saw him when I went to turning my slip for a win. He was turning his slip in for a win. I'm like, see, you bounce back. Like,
Right.
you can't like break yourself down, because then you're gonna start to go on a downward spiral. So just as long as you're playing Pokemon, as long as you're still in the tournament too, like you can't like just gotta remind yourself like it's okay. I have another round.
Yeah.
I can keep playing. I just gotta play better the next round.
Yeah.
Like don't let it spiral you. And if you get eliminated, but you still want to play. If you get eliminated and you're upset, drop.
Yeah.
Go get some food. Go back to your hotel, your B&B. If you need to get away, get some space. Go get some air outside the convention center. Like I am a full advocate of feeling your emotions.
Yeah.
Totally get it. But there's a way to do it, and there's also just like time to do it.
Yeah.
In some cases, if you're gonna be like angry, and which I can understand, but you just can't be angry at people, with everybody around you, stuff like that. So that's the best thing I can say is like, hey, do what you got to do to feel better, or to just let it out, but just understand when and where. And if you're still alive, keep playing. Like don't beat yourself up too much that it starts to, because then it's just gonna be a downward spiral, and then it's just gonna make things compoundedly worse.
Yeah. Short-term memory. I like that.
Short-term memory is the best thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Appreciate that.
It's okay to be emotional, but you can't stew on it and stew on it and stew on it, because there is going to be a next round. And you touched on it as well too. So with this season changes, especially ties, you're going to want to avoid them at all costs. And you talked about having a tie in your first round, and unfortunate, right? Because it maybe was a little bit slower than what you needed it to be. Specifically with this season, and if we have, I think it was like 2048 is the magic number to get to 9 rounds. But either way, right? You're going to need to only basically have 2 losses or 2 ties, but you need to hit like 21 points, right? If you're playing 9 rounds, or 18 with 8 rounds. With the threshold getting kicked up as opposed to 19 in 9 rounds, which was just always like a given. What's kind of your approach in gentlemen's agreements, picking the right deck, that sort of stuff to maximize the 7 wins or the 6 wins, for depending on the size of the regional, which it seems like everything's going to be well over 2,000, at least from the 2 regionals that we've been able to register for in North America. So what's kind of your thought process there? And I know you probably kind of hit on that at Worlds a little bit as well too, because they maximize the wins and de-incentivize any ties. I guess kind of what's your approach into that for our listeners?
So going into Baltimore, we're going to be playing 9 rounds.
Yeah.
It's going to be, in Louisville too, I'm looking at it now.
Yeah.
We're at 20.
Yeah. Yep.
So both of those tournaments are going to be 9 rounds. You're going to need to go 7-2 or 6-0-3. Going into those tournaments, it's going to be a lot harder. Like those 6-2 into ID round, that round is now always a winning in. You can't ID.
Yeah.
And as far as like gentlemen's agreements go, once I'm at a spot where I'm like, if I'm 1-1, if I have 1 tie, 1 loss, a loss and a tie are essentially the same thing. So like I'm a gentleman's agreeing at that point. As long as I'm undefeated, I don't care if I tie, because a 6-0-3 could get you there. And if you get to 6-0-1, then you just double ID into day 2, sure. I'm it's going to be hard pressed to find somebody at 6-0-1, as long as you don't get down paired. That's not going to want to just ID into day 2, because just getting 2 IDs, whether instead of like 2 winning ins, is probably a lot better. There'll be the people that will like, no, I want to try and get in as 7-1-1. Sure. Hey, have fun. But if you're 6-0-1 and you take a loss, and then that last round becomes a winning in and you lose, you could have just tied twice and got in for sure. So like 6-0-1 is going to be like a funny spot to be in. The top players are always going to keep playing it out, but you can't win the big show if you're not in the big show. So me, if I'm sitting at 6-0-1, I'm heavily contemplating just going 2 ties. And day 2 is going to be significantly smaller, so the variance aspect is probably going to be less of a factor going to day 2 going forward now. So I think 6-0-3 is actually kind of not a bad spot to be. But yeah, as far as gentlemen's agreements, until you have a tie and a loss, or you're already at 2 losses, like a tie like is going to be, detrimental. You're not going to be able to get to the threshold. Then yeah, start making those agreements. But until then, just keep playing your games, play your sets. It is going to be difficult though. I've been very. I don't want to discourage anybody. It's not what I'm trying to do when I say things to people, like, especially like my locals. I'm in a local chat with them, and I'm just letting them know, like, guys, I've gone into day 2 at 6-2-1 almost every single day 2 I've made. Yeah. And like it's just thinking about that round that I ID'd, having to play it out how many times, like that could be a win or a loss, and that could, like, if we're just going 50-50 and I cut the amount of day 2s I make in half because of that, like, that's huge. And so just taking that into account, like, it's going to be hard. It is going to be very, very hard to get to that 7-2 or 6-0-3.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want people to be discouraged, like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to do that, it's gonna be so tough. But like, when you're making your deck selections, when you're trying to figure out what you're gonna play, when you're just trying to like mentally give yourself the goal of what your end game of the tournament or what your goal for the tournament is, just understand that these things are getting a lot tougher. The amount of players that are playing is going up. The amount of information people have is at an all-time high. So a lot of people have the same knowledge that you do. And that's just gonna makes the margin for error so much smaller. That's why it makes, whenever like players, it took me a little bit to really kind of like give myself my flowers. It mainly took a lot of my teammates giving me my flowers for me to give them to myself. But like, dude, making day 2 even before was super tough with how massive these tournaments are. Yeah. It's no easy feat. And going into this now, if the consistency is going to be super, super like odd at, because it's going to be tremendously difficult going into this new format, and then getting an invitation is going to be tremendously difficult. So just going into this, I think the main thing is be confident. Also understand that if you do not make day 2, it is a really, really tough thing to make day 2. There are people that make it look so easy. There are, and I know sometimes people look at me as like, well, you just like only been playing 2 years and you're consistently making it. It's like, yeah, but I think I have a lot of outward gifts that I brought into this game that helped me in this. Like, I used to memorize like textbook size playbooks within like 2 months. I have to know not just my job, my offensive line's job, my wide receiver's jobs. I need to know audibles. I need to know I need to know how to read defenses, study my opponents, know how, when they're lined up a certain way. Because even them, they hide their coverages. So sports people, sorry if you don't understand these references. Sports people, you guys are probably eating this up. But like, if I see 2 guys deep, that's usually a cover 2 if you're in high school level. But when I got to college, as soon as I snap the ball, I can see the shifts happen, and now there's deep thirds, and now it's a cover 3, and the play call we call it attacks cover 2, and I have to figure out what I'm going to do mid play. So stuff like that, like that comes in handy a lot in this game. I'm good at being able to read a situation, problem solve really quickly, and find a new solution or find a way to pivot, which is very big because everybody can know the mapping. But I think I saw a top player, I can now remember, I'm sorry, whoever it was, but I saw them tweet about it or say something about it. It's like, the biggest thing in this game is your ability to on the fly make good calls and make good plays and pivot. That's where like the top players really like separate themselves. And me having that like kind of history from sports, I've brought that into this game a lot. Being able, and then also just being able to memorize things. I know what like a lot of the cards in the format do, so it's hard. Like, it's hard pressed to like surprise me with things because I've seen a lot, I've studied a lot, and so my memory is really, really good. And I have like almost like a photographic memory when it comes to stuff like that. And so those are things that I brought with me that are kind of like cheat codes in this that have helped me see that like consistency, and they've helped me in this game. But like, so even though I may make it look easy sometimes, but it's definitely not. So going into these tournaments, just understand that it's not. Like, don't beat yourself up too much if you miss, because I'm pretty sure you're gonna see a lot of top players also miss. Like, I would love, like, my goal, and I would love to day 2 every tournament I go to.
Sure.
But like realistically, looking at this format, I know that the way the variance works in this game, there's gonna be some times I probably don't make day 2. Like I'm like it's just that as long as I am converting more times than I'm not, I'm gonna be happy with that. And as long as by the end of the season, my goal is to be within the top 125. My goal this year is to be in the top 16.
Yeah.
You know, and like those are my goals. Like and you don't need to day 2 every event. You need to day 2 a lot of them, and you do well at a lot of these. But like, you're not gonna day 2 every event you go to.
Yeah.
I mean, guys like Azul went to Worlds, didn't make day 2 at Worlds after just making top 4 last year and winning a couple tournaments this year. Like it just happens because of the RNG or because of the deck you played and you just didn't hit the matchups you wanted to. So there's a lot of things that carry on that like you may have played perfect. You may have, but the RNG got you, the matchup got you, whatever it is. So just going into this tournament, make sure that you're well prepped. Don't make a gentleman's agreement until you're on that threshold of like your X11 or X2, where a tie is essentially the same thing as a loss. And I think you'll be fine.
That's awesome. I love it. I think it's a true testament to your skills and your abilities too. It's this mentality of I'm going to outwork the person in front of me, no matter how good they are. Like, I'm coming to this, I'm expecting to win. Like putting everything we just talked about together, like from the start. I think we kind of we mapped it out this way. Like, deck selection, understanding like the pre-work, getting to the game, getting in the game, and things like that too. So no, I appreciate that, and I think I could speak for Aaron here too. Like your time is extremely valuable, so we do appreciate it. Hopefully, hopefully there are a lot of people who listen to this who can take away at least a piece of what you said, and hopefully everything, and make that day 2. Baltimore's coming up. It's gonna be cool to see those tweets come out of, hey, I made my first day 2. Like I can't wait, and I hope that's I want that to be a tweet that I get to put out after Baltimore too. Is I made my first 2. Yeah, we're getting there. We've been putting in the work. But no, let's go ahead and close out though. I know we've used a lot of your time, but hopefully this is something people can go back, listen to time and time again. I think there's a lot of really solid nuggets too. So I appreciate your time. But Dre, tell us where people can find you. I think a lot of us already know, but share that. Share all the places that we can find Dre and these wisdom nuggets that you drop.
Sure. On the screen, it has my @ King Dre Cloud with the 1 instead of the L. You can find me on Twitter at that @. It's also the same as my Twitch channel. I stream Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and sometimes Saturdays. Just depending on like if I have a cup or challenge, I want to do like a limitless tournament, what have you. I also have a YouTube channel that I stream on YouTube. It's Clout TCG, so the same C1OUT, but TCG at the end. I drop videos. I'm trying to work on doing like maybe twice a month videos as far as like taking, like you mentioned the video I have where I take the deck, I try to profile the deck, how it's typically built, go through some like solitaire hands and how to work those. Like I took my actual, like the way I test hands games, I do that right here and walk you through like, okay, looking at this hand is probably the most optimal way to do this hand. And now we're set up. As you can see, this is where we want to be. Or you know what, this deck sometimes I include the bad hands too. Like, we had a bad hand.
I also appreciated.
Like, we had a bad hand. This is what we do. If out of this bad hand, this is probably the most optimal thing to do, because sometimes you just get a bad hand and we're going to play out of it. If we survive, if we survive, then we get to play the game. If not, hey, it happens. We're probably losing this game if we're playing against this matchup, what have you. But I go through that and then I go on to the ladder. So those YouTube videos, very informative. But also when I stream on both Twitch and YouTube. So if you don't like Twitch, you can catch me there. And then I do offer coaching. If you want to get more one-on-one from me, I feel like I'm a very social person. I get along with people a lot really well. I can usually find a way to vibe with people. And I feel like I break the game down in a very like consumable way. Just with the way I word things, I try not to overwhelm people, but I also try not to like talk down to people. I want you to feel like we are working together, not like you are underneath me. And I think a lot of people that work with me love that. And I think that's why I enjoy the interactions I have with so many people, because you're always going to be my equal to me. Even if I'm helping you to get better, even if you look at me or I truly am like maybe better than you in skill level, we're still equals. You're still my peer. You want to get better in this game. And I want you to be better in this game, because the more good people in this game is going to make me better, is how I see it. Iron sharpens iron, all that good stuff. So Metafy, you can find the link in the bio on Twitter. And that's pretty much it. Cool. Big shout out to the Shuffle Squad. Big shout out to you guys for having me here. I appreciate you. a huge shout out to California, the whole state. I'd be out here from the Bay Area down to LA, trying to grind my cups and challenges. And everywhere I've been in this state has been insanely welcoming to me. And I appreciate it so much, even though as I look to leave California soon. I just got to shout out the whole state because probably one of the best states, just saying.
Can't forget San Diego too. There's some good ones down there. I played at a challenge there a couple months ago. So some good people down there too.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in terms of your coaching and everything, I mean, I would be remiss if this wasn't a coaching consultation, and I know you can dive way more into the specific that probably our listeners and followers want. But I cannot thank you enough. Again, I was thinking like, how can we fill some space, and you literally like knocked it out, grand slam, like absolutely clubbed the ball as deep as it could possibly go. So I really am appreciated for joining the PCS podcast back. Obviously a little bit different interviewers than last time, but as I introduced you, a friend of the pod and just a man amongst the people that everyone should enjoy, because I think you're a unique character. But I think first more your character is just frontward and honest, and that's the type of people that this podcast and community really strive to follow. So I thank you again, Dre, and Michael. Thank you for taking your Sunday evening out of the holiday weekend and recording the podcast. So, and again, thank you to our Patreon members. Without you guys donating what you do and help, it helps fund our prizing and just this podcast in general. For myself, you can find me pretty much anywhere at PCS_pod for Twitter. Twitch is PCS Podcast with no hyphen or underscores. And then patreon.com/PCS Podcast. And then YouTube, where we've gotten a few views as well, too. I know a lot of our listeners are just mainly audio, but again, it certainly helps any way that you want to join. And follow us, I appreciate. So that is youtube.com at the PCS Podcast. And Michael, where can the people find more of you?
Yeah, you can find me yapping at mheradia_PTCG on Twitter. Yap about a lot of different things. Most recently, Georgia football. I think I posted some pictures of the chicken wings that I grilled out. I was pretty proud of myself for that too. So, it's my life. I live on there in terms of like sharing. So I'm an open book. My son's on there all the time too, which he's a better Pokemon player than I am. mheradia PTCG.
Thank you. And Dre, last question as a footnote. Who is the best basketball player at your TCG basketball game out at Worlds in Hawaii?
Blake Ray is insane. He played D1 basketball, so like he's the guy on the court. I put myself up there just off of pure. I mean, I'm an athlete, so when you put a ball in my hand, whether it's a baseball, football, basketball, I'm gonna put max effort, and I'm a pretty big guy, pretty athletic guy. So, but Blake Ray, he's a beast. Bro played D1. He played at North Texas, so it's definitely Blake Ray.
Okay, I saw a video and I was like, he moves way too smoothly to like be a Pokemon player, like for that. So I saw that and I was like, this is part of some of the questions I had queued up. I was like, I need to sneak that one in just because it was cool. Like, and you guys had a good show out as well too.
Yeah,
it was actually awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot more people than I actually initially expected. So
Awesome.
cool. I appreciate you sharing that. And again, Michael and myself both thank you for taking time out of your Sunday evening. And best of luck to both of you at Baltimore. I wish I could be there, but I will definitely be watching in full spirit for both of you. So thanks again, everyone, for listening, watching, following, whatever you can do to help. And if you're not into Patreon, just watching and listening and leaving a like or a review also helps the podcast continue to grow. So this evening, we'll peace everyone out, and we have another special guest host next week to cover the Baltimore meta. A certain maybe top 4 Worlds player to rejoin the show. So if that's not a nugget of who it might be on, I'm excited to talk to them and kind of looking forward to Baltimore. Thanks again for everyone for listening.
See ya.
Peace.